A children's tragedy at sea led one failed inventor to a discovery that would end up on nearly every kitchen shelf in the world. To understand how, we have to go back to 1851, aboard a ship crossing the Atlantic. Gale Borden, an American inventor already deep in failure. His last big idea, a meat biscuit meant to feed armies, had just bankrupted him. Now he's on a steamship heading home from England, watching something far worse unfold. The ship's cows, seasick from the voyage, aren't producing milk. What little milk is left spoils fast in the heat below deck. Children on board get sick. Some don't survive the trip. Borden watches, unable to do anything. And he can't stop thinking about it. Back on land, he becomes obsessed with one question. How do you keep milk from turning? He tries the obvious approach, boiling it down over an open flame, the way people preserve fruit. It doesn't work. The milk scorches. It curdles. It turns brown and bitter long before enough water evaporates. Attempt after attempt ends the same way, ruined. Then, almost by accident, he visits a Shaker religious community and sees something he wasn't looking for at all. The Shakers are condensing fruit juice using a strange, sealed copper kettle, a vacuum pan. Inside it, liquid boils at a much lower temperature than normal because there's almost no air pressure pushing down on it. Borden realizes, if fruit juice can reduce without burning, why not milk? He builds his own vacuum pan. Milk goes in. A heating coil warms it gently, evenly, while the vacuum pulls the water out as vapor. No scorching, no curdling, just milk, slowly thickening into something new. It takes him years of adjusting the heat, the pressure, the timing, small failures, over and over, before he gets it right. Finally, in 1856, he receives a patent for what he calls condensed milk. It doesn't take off right away. His first company struggles. But Borden keeps refining the process and the recipe, adding sugar, which helps preserve it even further. Then, in 1861, the Civil War breaks out, and the Union Army needs food that won't spoil on long marches. Borden's condensed milk becomes a staple ration. Soldiers carry cans of it across battlefields where fresh milk could never survive. By the war's end, nearly the entire country knows the name on the can, Borden. What started as a desperate response to a tragedy at sea becomes one of the first shelf-stable foods in history. Today, sweetened condensed milk is a pantry staple on nearly every continent. In coffee, in desserts, in recipes that have nothing to do with 19th century shipping routes. The can barely changed. The process barely changed. Milk, sugar, and a vacuum, nearly 2 centuries later. A man with almost no scientific training, who had already failed at almost everything else, solved a problem doctors and scientists hadn't cracked yet. Not by inventing something from nothing, but by noticing, at exactly the right moment, that someone else's kettle could save children's lives. The same disaster that could have broken him instead became the reason a 5-year-old today can have a can of sweetened condensed milk in their pantry, without ever knowing why. A house on an old road between Boston and New Bedford. One evening, and a decision that, within a year, would end up on packaging in supermarkets around the world. To understand what happened that evening, we have to go back 8 years. Ruth Wakefield and her husband buy an old roadside house and open an inn, the Toll House Inn. Over the next decade, thousands of guests will pass through her kitchen. Her recipes become so popular, she publishes her own cookbook. Guests start driving out specifically for her desserts. I wanted to give them something different, she said later. That evening, she's once again tweaking the guest's favorite cookie. Everything as usual, until one moment. The jar of baking chocolate, empty. A full dining room is waiting for dessert. Canceling it means admitting failure in front of her regulars. On the shelf, a Nestle chocolate bar. Not for baking. It won't melt the way the batter needs it to. She breaks it into small pieces and folds them into the dough, counting on them to melt in the oven. The tray goes into the oven, and the longest few minutes of her evening begin. She opens the oven door. The cookies don't look the way they usually do. The chocolate pieces haven't melted, there's still hole inside, soft little patches. Even she isn't sure what she's made. She carries the plate into the dining room. A guest picks up a cookie, takes a bite. A second of silence. Then the guest asks for seconds. The next table is already reaching for the plate. The cookie gets a name, the Toll House Chocolate Crunch Cookie. The recipe makes it into her cookbook, and word spreads to the local papers. Nestle notices something. Sales of their chocolate bars in the area are spiking. In March 1939, the company strikes a deal with Ruth. $1, a lifetime supply of chocolate, and a consulting contract with the company itself. In exchange, the right to print her recipe on the wrapper. Within a few years, American soldiers are sharing this cookie out of care packages from home, and the whole country starts writing to Ruth asking for the recipe. A simple mistake in one kitchen became a whole country's favorite cookie. And that house on the old road. That very decision that ended up on shelves in supermarkets around the world. In a monastery kitchen centuries ago, monks threw away what they thought was fermentation waste, until someone tasted it. To understand this, we have to go back over 2,000 years to ancient China. Salt was scarce and expensive. To stretch it, people began fermenting meat, fish, and beans together with salt into a thick paste called jiang. The paste preserved food and deepened its flavor, but it was slow, messy work, aged for months in large ceramic vats. When Buddhism spread into China, monks needed a vegetarian alternative to fish-based jiang, so soybeans became the main ingredient. In monastery kitchens, monks packed soybeans and salt into huge clay jars, layer by layer, and left them to ferment. For months, there's nothing to do but wait, turning the mash, checking on it, waiting again. As the paste matured, something else was happening at the bottom of the jars. A dark liquid, slowly pooling beneath the solid mash. At first, it's treated as nothing more than runoff, something to be drained away and discarded. But one day, someone doesn't throw it out. They taste it. It's nothing like the paste above it. Deeper, saltier, packed with a savory richness nobody expected from a byproduct. Word spreads through the monastery. Monks start deliberately collecting the liquid instead of discarding it, pressing the mash to draw out even more. By the Song dynasty, this liquid earns its own name, separate from the paste, jiangyu. Buddhist monks, traveling between monasteries in China and Japan, carry the technique with them. In Japan, the process is refined further, eventually becoming what we now call shoyu, soy sauce. What began as a way to stretch expensive salt, and was later dismissed as fermentation runoff, becomes one of the most widely used condiments on the planet. Today, it's produced by the billions of liters a year, and it's still made almost the same way it was discovered: beans, salt, time, and patience. The very thing ancient cooks nearly poured down the drain is now on tables in nearly every country on Earth. The waste at the bottom of a clay jar in ancient China turned out to be one of the most important flavors in the history of food. 1 year before Coca-Cola even existed, a drink with no name was already being poured from a small-town soda fountain, and the man behind it was just trying to bottle a smell. To understand how, we have to go back to a pharmacy counter in Texas. 1885. Waco. Morrison's old corner drugstore, part pharmacy, part soda fountain, the social hub of the whole town. Behind the counter, Charles Alderton, a young pharmacist from Brooklyn. He loved one thing about this job: the smell. Dozens of fruit syrups mixing in the air. But lately, the usual flavors weren't selling like they used to. Sarsaparilla, lemon, vanilla. Customers wanted something new. Between filling prescriptions, Alderton starts experimenting, pouring syrups together, one combination at a time. He tries dozens of blends over the following weeks. Most fail. Too sweet. Too strange. Nothing close to that smell he loved. Eventually, he lands on something wild. A mix of 23 different flavors, sharpened with a dash of phosphoric acid for bite. He pours a glass and calls Wade Morrison, the store's owner, over to try it. Morrison takes a sip and likes what he tastes. They pour it for a few regulars at the soda fountain, just to see what happens. The regulars like it too, enough that they start asking for it by name. Well, sort of a name, Shoot Me a Waco. Word spreads through town. The drink with no real name becomes the thing to order at Morrison's counter. Eventually, Morrison renames it. He calls it Dr. Pepper. But why that name exactly? Even today, the company's own museum has collected over a dozen different origin stories, and none of them fully agree. What we do know, it was first sold on December 1st, 1885, 1 year before Coca-Cola existed. By 1891, Alderton partners with Morrison and a chemist named Robert Lazenby to take the drink further. Together, they found the Artesian Manufacturing and Bottling Company, turning a soda fountain mix into a real business. In 1904, Dr. Pepper gets its biggest stage yet, the World's Fair in St. Louis, in front of nearly 20 million visitors. It's introduced as something entirely new, a soft drink unlike anything else on the table. Today, it's one of the oldest soft drinks in America, older than Coca-Cola by a full year. The exact 23-flavor formula Alderton mixed that day? Still a company secret, more than a century later. A smell one pharmacist couldn't stop chasing in 1885 is now sold in over 100 countries. And nobody's still entirely sure why it's called Dr. Pepper at all.
Thanks for watching.